Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Human Echoes podcast, the show where we review oddball movies, have oddball discussions, and occasionally take questions from you, the oddball fans.
I'm Tony Southcott.
I'm Albert Berg, and the oddball movie for this week is The Eyes of My Mother. It's a 2016 film that's sort of just hot off the festival circuit and hitting Netflix, and the plot of this film is kind of thin. It's a movie about a girl who witnesses a home invasion in which her mother is killed, and in the aftermath of that home invasion, her father takes the killer prisoner, and she cuts out his eyes.
And his tongue. And then
does more, yeah. His tongue and I think his vocal cords?
Yeah. I'm actually not 100% sure the tongue was gone, but definitely the vocal cords.
Yeah, and then she cuts more people up throughout the course of the movie, and then the movie's over.
Yeah. Like the actual description on IMDb says, a young lonely woman is consumed by her deepest and darkest desires after tragedy strikes her quiet country life. Which I don't think really sums it up all that much. It's more like creepy-ass girl with odd relationship with her father, tortures man who killed her mother, and then goes on to try to alleviate her loneliness through murder.
I think that there is more information in the description that you just read than maybe there is in the whole movie, as far as like her motivations and the chain of events, right? Like the domino of this caused this and this caused this. You can make those inferences, but the movie draws none of those lines between the dots. It just gives you like a giant shotgun blast of dots and says, here's some dots. Maybe you could draw some lines. Maybe you get like a guy with a big nose. Maybe it's an outline of Antarctica. You don't know. Start drawing lines wherever you feel like it, guys. We have creepy cinematography. It's in black and white. What do you want from us?
Yeah, it was okay cinematography. Just like...
Whoa. This is a gorgeous film. I want to, like, I'm not with Tony on this at all. I did not like the story as it was presented. I did not think this film does an amazing job of telling a story and getting us like on board with anybody at all. Helping us understand where they're coming from or why they're doing what they're doing. There was a description I read that talked about how her mom, as a surgeon, teaching her about the innards of animals desensitized her somehow, and that's why she's perfectly willing to cut people up. I don't think that's an adequate explanation, but it's way more than the movie ever gives us explicitly, but...
Well, I had a theory that maybe she was kidnapped in the same way that she later pulls a kidnapping. Like, because that couple is, like, 50 years older than her, it seemed like. Interesting theory. I again, more than the movie gives us, but okay, I'm going with you here. Like, I just see a lot of odd things in this, and it's like maybe they're just an old couple that had kids late, like had a child late in life, but it just didn't feel like it entirely fit with what was going on. It felt like this is kind of a cycle that's repeating itself, that her forced isolation kind of led to this.
I like where you're going with that, Tony. That actually makes some of this a little bit better. I did not pick up on that at the time. I know that there is sort of this overarching idea of family, and the family's all messed up, but it didn't seem to be a commentary on like real family, because these are not the kind of problems that real families have.
Yeah, I mean,
usually.
Do you remember the last time that your mom had somebody chained up in the barn for a while? Like,
it's been a while, Tony.
Yeah.
Listen, it's been a while. It's been a long time since I was 7, so we moved away from there.
Yeah. Mama Berg got past her whole wanting to chain people up and take their eyes out.
But the thing that really wowed me about this film was the visuals. This is a film that's in black and white, and it's that really stark, like, chiaroscuro black and white, where you have really dark blacks and really white whites, and the way it paints things. There are some scenes here that are just, I mean, practically the opening shot, right? The opening shot is a long take, like, from the perspective of this cab, where you see this truck driving along, and then the camera stays in the cab, but the scene shifts as the truck driver gets out, and now the foreground is like farther back, and so they do that several times. Then they cut to this a gorgeous overhead shot of that same thing where the truck's like...
That overhead shot, like, I actually just remembered that. It felt like it was way too high, but it was like perfect at the same time.
It was amazing. There is a shot in here of, it is a black background and black figures on the background, and they're lit from behind so that just their outlines show up. It looks like something from Sin City if like Robert Rodriguez was a legit, really great director instead of just a pretty good director. The look here is incredible. They have these amazing long takes that aren't like walk around oneers where you're really impressed with how how'd they do that. It's amazing that they went for that long. But in the same time, like making economical use of, again, the foreground and the background, and something will start in one part of the frame and then move out of the frame and move back into the background as the shot's still going. That stuff was all incredibly impressive to me. I thought that the look of this film was mind-blowing. And especially, we're seeing a lot of sort of return to black and white lately. You had even in more bigger films, you had the Mad Max Black and Chrome edition. They're releasing the Wolverine in black and white, like completely recolor graded, and a lot of these smaller films are sort of playing around with black and white, and I haven't seen black and white that looks this good in a while.
Well, it takes a specific type of design to make black and white look good. It's like whenever you see a bunch of people trying to make like, oh, look at my Instagram picture, it's so like deep because it's black and white. It's like, no, this movie actually knew exactly what it was doing with light and shadow. It was on a different level than you usually see.
And that was exceptional to me, but to get back to the problems with the story, I felt like it didn't do enough. For one thing, it felt like that we were just at there wasn't much of a crescendo in the plot. It was just like kind of the same level of horrifying all the way through. Her like psychosis progressing a little bit is kind of unnerving, because it starts out with, okay, she's attacking somebody who did attack her mother. Maybe we can kind of forgive her for that. But then she goes into more and more innocent people in her attacks. That's some level of escalation, but it doesn't feel like the movie's really playing along with that. It's just, yep, here's even more sort of gruesome implied violence and actual violence. They do a great job of
that was
editing.
Interesting too. They didn't really do a whole lot of the on the screen stuff. You'd see the aftermath of violence, and you'd see a few things with that. But for the most part, it was just a smash cut to like cleaning the floors and things like that.
And I love that stuff. I mean, I do get, this is the kind of film, people talked about, like, The Babadook is not a horror film, guys. I don't know why y'all were still scared by The Babadook. It's not that scary, all right? Like, get off your high horse and go watch some, I don't know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like a real horror film, y'all. Okay, I'm not on board with that, but I 100% see where you're coming from if you watch this film and it's been billed to you as a horror film, and you're like, no, this is not my kind of horror. It's if you thought that things like The Babadook and It Follows weren't real horror films, then you're really not going to dig this. This is artsy and niche, and I dig artsy and niche. I like the stuff that was artsy and niche about it, but they're not going for a lot of the gore. They give you some, and what you do get kind of feels like it has a good punch to it, but if you're just here for the kills or whatever, it's not the movie for you.
Yeah, but I think there is a certain horror in like having a girl cut a dude's eyes out and keep him chained up for years at a time.
And keep the eyes in a bag and possibly feed him back to him.
Yeah, that was kind of implied too. And like, speaking of, Will Brill, the guy who was the psychotic killer in the first part, the guy doing the home invasion, was completely unnerving. This movie kind of had a way of plateauing with like the tension where it went up and then it stayed at the same like pitch the whole movie. It didn't really have any ups or downs with that.
Yeah, and I did love that first moment. You had the inciting moment of kind of unnervingness when the mom is showing her how to, she has the cow head on the table and showing her how to cut open cow eyes and pull out the retina, not the retina, the cornea, and saying, oh, this is what we see the world through, which kind of gives you some of the title, right? And also her pulling people's eyes out with the eyes of my mother. But the moment when the guy comes in and threatens them, you can tell that he's a little off at first, but just the way he so calmly kind of is going to take charge and is going to, is totally willing to do whatever it takes to get his rocks off by killing somebody just because it feels good. That was really it felt like it was taking to another level, but the movie stayed at that level for so long that you just kind of became numb to it.
Yeah.
I feel like you needed to have more, and maybe this is to intention. I don't want to say they should have made the movie this way, but it felt like maybe they were doing this on purpose just to sort of give you the idea that she lives in this violence. And so it's not, because the father's reaction when coming home and seeing him beating the bloody corpse of the mother in the bathroom with the butt of the pistol, I didn't pause it and look, but
that's what it looked like to me as well.
It's like half a second of violence, but the father isn't like, "What are you doing?" horrified. He's just sort of, "Welp, gotta chain you up in the barn."
And that was like an odd little like transitionary piece of violence. You hear it, but you don't see anything. I thought he was dead first. You're just like seeing him put the guy on a tarp and drag him away. Then you find out
it's another beautiful camera angle on the tarp, like going over
kind
the
of
body.
Ground. Yeah,
rattles as it goes over the ground. Great stuff.
The father was such a weird character to me because I was trying to figure out what his deal was. That I thought he was completely stoic and unfeeling, and then you get a moment where he actually is kind of expressing his pain and he is trying to be good for his daughter and everything, but there's also just like a really deep coldness to him.
And I mean, your theory of that she might have been kidnapped and this is a part of a cycle, I really like that, Tony. And there's something interesting too about the timelessness of the setting here. If they're making the point that this kind of violence perpetuates itself, the fact that she gets older, right? She becomes an adult, and then at one point there's another person who's aged in the film, and yet you don't really get, like, she still has the same car. They're still watching the same shows on the same tube television. There's never a passage of time as much as there's these people just aging through this same world that's stuck repeating over and over and over with this violence. I like that angle a lot. Now that I'm thinking about it, especially now that you brought up that possibility, that was a very insightful comment, Tony.
I have no idea if it's true or not. It's just what I was picking up.
Well, I don't know that there is... The film suggests many things. I mean, maybe the Chinese girl that she brought home, she didn't kill. Maybe the girl just walked off and then she spilled a bunch of blood on the floor and she was cleaning that up, right?
Oh, we don't black and white, know. You don't even know for sure. She might have just been scrubbing.
Yeah, but the implication is strong there that it seems pretty likely, and what you're saying fits with the tone of the movie. So it's an interesting enough interpretation. And I was looking for interpretations of this film online, Tony. I spent a lot of time looking up analyses and things, and I didn't see anything nearly that clever. I'm very happy. Proud of you, Tony. Good job.
There was a lot more out there that was like, don't let the artistry fool you. This movie is just fucked up. Like, that seemed to be one of the main things that I kept reading about whenever I was looking up reviews and trying to find more on the background of this movie. It's a little bit newer, so we don't have the luxury of a lot of director interviews and things to fall back on with it.
Yeah, and I like a movie that you have to interpret. It seems like that there is something more under the surface here, but if I don't see it, then I'm going to judge it as if there isn't anything there. Maybe that's my stupidity. But my initial feeling was, I really thought that was pretty, but I don't know what it's trying to say.
Yeah.
I don't know what the point of it is. And it's a weird... I was actually watching on YouTube recently, just because of an article on Blumhouse.com, which, by the way, is a really interesting sort of movie fan site. I mean, it is also for Blumhouse Productions, but they have, like, cool articles highlighting different stuff, like cool little listicles and different stuff. And they had an article about the Murnau's Faust and how cool and weird that looked. And I'd never seen Faust, so I was going to try to watch it. And looking at that and kind of comparing the black and white, stark artistry in that to this, obviously it's older and it's sort of decayed to a certain extent. But there is a very clear story in Faust about this guy who is a doctor and a man of faith, and he sees faith fail to save the sick, and he sees his medical knowledge fail to save the sick, and he's torn apart by his inability to do this so much that he comes to the breaking point and calls on the power of Satan to help him stop this plague. That that story I got. I felt that story. When he threw his Bible in the fire and said, no, I'm not doing this anymore, like God's forsaken us and knowledge has forsaken us and there's no help, even though it's in silent movie mode, I totally understood everything that was happening. This woman and her family, though, are so far from being human that I just couldn't latch on to what her motivation was and why she was acting the way she was. And it's good that it's a shorter film, I think. It's like an hour and 16 minutes.
Yeah, 77 minutes, like, so it doesn't wear out its welcome. It felt a little bit longer than that to me, but it, like, not in a really bad way. It was just a very slow burn type for a while.
Yeah, and I think that if it had overstayed its welcome, I would have many more harsh words for it. But for what it was fine. It's just not the kind of film that I'm ever going to want to visit again.
Yeah. It's like it doesn't quite have the rewatch value of like Darling, which is the movie that I was kind of thinking of while watching this.
Darling definitely has a lot more. It's got that same thing where it doesn't give you a ton of insight into the main character, but and she is somewhat detached, but you do have that sort of manic quality to the editing of the film and the soundtrack and the way it's all put together. I feel dumb saying this, but it does more of telling you kind of what it wants you to feel than this one does. This one's just sort of like, here's this girl with a blank stare for the whole movie. What do you think about that, huh? And I didn't think anything about it. Again, until Tony came up with this really brilliant idea that maybe she had been through the same thing and it's perpetuating cycle of violence, which I do like a lot.
We'll see if anybody else believes that if they end up watching this and commenting on this review.
Do you have anything else that you wanted to say about The Eyes of My Mother, Tony? I'm just wanted to shout out, if you like beautiful cinematography and black and white stuff, it's worth a watch for that.
Yeah, you could tell why it did so well on the festival circuit. Like
it's definitely different. When you're in those festival films and you go in, you sit down, and you're like, okay, what kind of sort of humdrum film student projects, self-important thing am I going to see today? And when you get something that's this visually confident, it's not. I mean, I've only been to one film festival, Tony, but I know what it's like when you walk into a film and you're like, okay, this is like something real.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I'm going to be at the Telluride Film Festival or the Telluride Horror Show in October. I'm really excited for that one. That's the one I've been wanting to go to for a while now.
Cool. Check Tony out if he's there. Look him up.
Yep. This was also the first movie from Nicholas Pence. P-E-S-C-E.
I'm going to say Nicholas Pesci.
Pesci, yeah, that makes sense. Italians, crazy Italians. Anyway, this is his first film, and to just jump directly into it, the cinematography. Like, he wasn't even a cinematographer or like on film crews for other stuff, according to IMDb. So it's interesting, like, what his starting point is. Like, get this guy some better stories, and he might be a really good director.
It's possible that he was working on some smaller stuff in Italy that didn't make enough of a splash to get listed on IMDb.
He's from New York.
Is he? Well, never mind then.
Which I believe this was actually filmed in upstate New York. I kept trying to figure it out because it felt almost like backwoods Kentucky or something like that.
Man, so many. Thinking about the shots of the trees. There was the shot up through the trees, which Fargo, I'm sure lots of things have done. It reminded me of Fargo with the snow falling, and there was a shot in, I think, season 2 of trees up. And then, like, there's just that one long shot of the giant, like, tree line, and she comes out of it, and she's so tiny walking towards the camera. That was incredible. There was there was that third shot of the truck at the end of the movie, because it's sort of like a bookends thing, where you see the truck stopped in the road, and there was like a foreground that was gray, and then the trees were like darker black, and then the background was gray again. I just couldn't, my brain was like, how did they find a spot that had that exact quality where the trees were like that much darker than the trees that were around them? A lot of stuff in this movie visually blows my mind.
Yeah, and it seemed like the type of movie where everything was done in camera. Like, I don't think they were compositing tree shots together to build something like that. And if they did, it was seamless.
I wouldn't put it past them. I don't know. I don't know this director. I wouldn't like feel cheated if it was composited or color graded a little different or something. But I just looked at it and was like, this looks amazing. We need more black and white stuff.
Were you ever able to find what the budget was on this movie?
I didn't. I mean, I it's not that I wasn't able to. I didn't look.
I'm just always curious about this sort of stuff because it only made like 20-some thousand in theaters. Let me see.
It's on Netflix, so they probably got some. I'll look it up now.
Budget of $250,000.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
You get some actors that can do a stone face. You get the camera that'll shoot in black and white, and you get your one farmhouse, and there you go.
Probably
surprised it wasn't released by Blumhouse. Speaking of them,
it's not quite like it's not quite tonally for A24 Blumhouse.
Yeah, well, Blumhouse Tilt will do streaming releases. Not all of Blumhouse stuff goes to theaters. They have a smaller division that just releases stuff that they know isn't going to have a mass appeal, but they can still make a profit on in streaming. So there's they still have that locked down. But anyway, good stuff from Blumhouse, by the way. Really enjoy their business model. I saw again that there was somebody posted the original ending of Get Out on Reddit, and there was a lot of great discussion about. I'm not going to talk about it in detail, but it was interesting how even the changing of the ending and what the one ending was and what the other ending was able to inspire more discussion on the themes of the movie and what worked better and how it played into cinema history and the themes of racism that the movie was putting out there. It all really it's a smart film. I'm looking forward to whatever Jordan Peele's doing next, because that dude.
Well, he says he's got like 3 different like social commentary films available, and like. Well,
they're also trying to get him to make Akira, which is a weird this guy made this social commentary movie about black people. Let's get him to do an anime adaptation with a big budget.
I mean, I could see him pulling it off, but it's just it is an interesting stretch. And while we're on the subject of Blumhouse, a movie that you already saw last year is actually, I think it came out early this year. Split is now available for rent, so I'm looking forward to checking that one out.
I spoiled the ending of that for you, Tony. I won't spoil it for our listeners.
It's all right. I got spoiled for the ending for it like 2 days ago while I was at a shisha bar. This person came up and was like, "What'd you think?" Whatever, and then just blurted it out at me.
For the record, I don't think the ending of Split is much of an ending. I'm fine. Like I thought that it did not change anything that I thought already about the movie. It was just like, here's this other random thing that's cool and ties into other stuff, future and past, but it doesn't actually have anything to do with the movie I just saw.
Yeah.
So
I was a little less bothered by that because I don't know how the actual movie resolves with like the split personalities and everything else. So I still haven't been fully explicitly spoiled to it. I know that there are some in-universe things. That's all I know.
Yeah. Did we get any questions this week, Tony?
We did. We got a question from Mr. John Jones. Reads,
all right.
Lucas announces this year that he's doing a reshoot for one scene of the original 1977
This is not news, by the way. This is hypothetically. Hypothetical.
What reshoot would make everybody okay with this?
I mean, there's not something that everybody would be okay with. Somebody's going to have a problem with everything. I don't care what movie it is. There's going to be the one person who's like, well, I thought that was dumb. Oh. And Star Wars in particular has such a rabid fan base that I don't know that there is a thing that just everybody universally would be cool with.
Well, a lot of people, including people in this thread, immediately were like, Han shot first, just redo that. It's like, yes, let's.
He already did shoot first.
I know, but they want that to be like officially canon again.
There's no reshoots needed for that. They have that on film.
Yeah, like the VHS. I think John actually pulled it from his VHS and posted it. It's like that's not really a reshoot.
Yeah, I think that I've always felt that the Greedo scene itself. I mean, it's obviously standing in for the scene they wanted to do with Jabba, whatever. I need my coffee. That's on the brain.
Jabba.
They wanted to do this big scene with Jabba the Hutt. I think that the effects weren't where they wanted them to be, so they shot an alternate scene. Because if you watch the scene with Greedo, it's essentially exactly the same information, which is one reason why I really kind of annoyed, not even the special effects stuff in the special editions that doesn't look great with Jabba, with Han stepping on the tail and stuff. But they've already got that information over. He's just covered it with Greedo. If you're going to reshoot that scene with today's technology and reshoot Jabba the Hutt and take Greedo out completely. And have Han shoot, I don't know, have him shoot Jabba. And Jabba's like mad. You know, that would be awesome. Even that would make plenty of people mad. Because you'd be losing the Greedo scene. There's nothing that's not amazing about that film that somebody hasn't latched onto and said, "Oh, I want this so bad." Maybe go back and spice up the fight a little bit between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader.
Yeah, because that's like literally two dudes with sticks like just poking at each other. You look at what like the fight at the end of Return of the Jedi, or all the fights from Phantom Menace, which Phantom Menace has many, many problems. The fights with Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon Jinn are not the problem.
Yeah, and they don't do any. You know, Obi-Wan doesn't even do anything with the Force there. That's something that could be, I think, enhanced in the light of everything else that's come by. I know that they're both old at this point. I know that Darth Vader was probably injured in some accident beforehand, and that's why. And I do like how they handled him in Rogue One, where he doesn't do any flips or anything. He's just sort of a Frankensteinian type walking along, unstoppable force.
He's more Juggernaut than anything else in that scene.
Yes, and it fits in with what we see of him in the original films. But I think that they could do a bit more with that lightsaber fight. So I don't, and the thing is, I don't hate everything about the special editions. I grew up with the special editions, and there's some stuff that I would miss if they just release the original uncut, process. I would miss the X-Wings taking off.
That's actually the exact scene I was thinking of, is like a lot of the stuff that just got cleaned up with CGI involving X-Wings and kind of scrubbing out the lines on some things that didn't quite look as good later, whatever you're doing, like claymation type stuff, like just composite shots and things look a lot better in the special editions.
I even understand the motivation for George Lucas to go back and shoot the intro to Mos Eisley, because he wanted it to be this big sprawling spaceport, and he ends up with like 3 sets that he kind of has to shoot from a funny angle so that you can't see the edges. You know, he wants to go back. I don't think the technology was there at the time, but there is a version of that scene that could work a little better than it does. It doesn't make a lot of sense for the stormtroopers to be riding the dewbacks, but I don't hate that. It sort of feels like the weird kind of gonzo Saturday morning serial type thing that would happen in a Star Wars film. So there's a lot of that I think that was poorly executed, but the idea there, I get what he was going for, and I don't necessarily. I would just wish it was done better. You know, I wish that the special editions had a little bit more technology. It was impressive at the time, but it's sort of aged really badly. Especially that Jabba stuff.
Yeah. He just looks like a giant green slug now instead of a giant, stuffed puppet.
They did go back and remaster that. They're like, this looks so bad. We need to go back and redo some details. And they actually, when they re-released the special editions, they updated Jabba again. And maybe they'll keep doing that. Maybe they'll just keep making better versions of the original trilogy. I'm fine with that, guys. I hate to draw your ire, but if they touch it up
did you hear that, Al? That was the last person unsubscribing from us.
Oh, well.
They're gone.
I guess we can shut the show down then. Oh, well, that was easy. It's only a 30-minute recording. I'm kind of tired. My kid was up puking all night, night before last, so
spraying that puke. Oh, the joys of fatherhood.
Yeah. Although there are legitimate joys, I will say. Really proud of my kids. They're they've been graded recently for their school stuff, and they're very, very smart. They have some emotional issues they need to learn to process. So I'm proud of the things that they're doing well. AJ's actually been watching a YouTube series of this guy who plays Mario 64. And we went to play Mario 64 the other day, and he was walking me through okay, Daddy, you want to stand here? No, move. You want to look up. And he didn't know how to make it look up, but I was like, I think I'm going to move in with my gut thing. And he showed me how to get the wing cap in the castle, which I didn't know before because he watched this guy play and he was walking me through it. And then we were in the Boo mansion, which was awesome. And he was showing me all these things that I didn't know about because he was watching this Let's Play. So, smart kid.
It's interesting that some of the biggest games from like my childhood are actually still very, very good first games for kids. Like Mario 64 is one of the most approachable games ever.
It's a really good game. He's not able to play it yet. He can't, like, his hand-eye coordination isn't good enough, but he loves watching me play it and walking me through it. And there's that piano that chomps at you in that one room. And the reaction from this one Let's Player, whose name I can't remember, but he's pretty famous for doing N64 stuff. Because he's like, there's a moment in this Let's Play where he's trying to show you what this piano does. He's like, yeah, it was terrifying. You'd walk over here and get this red coin, and like it wasn't happening. He was sitting there like he got the red coin. He's like, well, it usually, and like as he's like sort of resigning to himself to the fact that it wasn't going to happen, the piano's like chomp, 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 chomp. He's like, ah, he got me again. Which I thought that was pretty hilarious. Well, this is not video game talk, though. We try to stick with movie stuff, and I think that we should move into trailer talk for this week. There were several pretty cool trailers. We picked out 3 like we usually do.
And then added a bonus one for a TV series.
A bonus one for TV, but let's hold that one off because I think there might be some extra discussion with this. I'm going to let you pick, Tony. What do you want to start with on trailer talk this week?
I mean, let's just start with the Emoji Movie.
Okay, the Emoji Movie had a new trailer drop. The first, I would say, real trailer. They had their teaser trailer because it was the meh emoji doing sort of his, like, you might not care about our movie. That's fine. I'm a meh emoji. And kind of showing you a little bit of what it was going to look like. But this trailer really got into more of the story of the Emoji Movie. It's about...
how they ripped off How to Train Your Dragon.
Okay.
It's okay to be different. It's okay.
Oh, that's not how... I mean, that is not the story. Yes, that is sort of the overarching story, and that's my least favorite part about this. But the idea that there's a world inside your phone... They really ripped off Wreck-It Ralph, Tony.
A little bit, yeah.
But I liked the visuals here, despite the fact that it is a concept that we've seen before, and the idea is kind of dumb. Between Wreck-It Ralph and Inside Out, I think they're ripping off some interesting stuff visually. The Inside Out was about the inside of the brain and sort of how that can be visually represented. Wreck-It Ralph, the inside of video game and computer systems. And here we are on the inside of your phone, and there's the world of the emoji, which I'm describing it and it sounds stupid, and conceptually it is stupid. But I think that the fact that they took this seriously enough to create this place and have them go to different like app lands. They go to Candy Crush. They go to some weird Killbot place. They're stopped by a firewall at one point. The way that all those places are visually represented, I was actually completely on board with. I thought that this trailer made me hate the idea of this movie a lot less.
I still hate it just as much, but I was closed off because of that first trailer. They lost me. This movie wasn't exactly made for me, trailer either.
So you're just on the concept alone. You just completely nope. I'm out.
Yeah, basically, I saw the first trailer and I was done. And watching this one made me think, oh, cool, T.J. Miller. Oh yeah, this movie looks like dog shit.
I do think that it can be still real bad depending on how they play out the just be yourself. You don't have to be what society wants you to be. Because there is, and I think that it's interesting where they're coming from, because if you have this emoji society where everybody has to be the emoji that they are, then yeah, okay. What are you going to do if somebody has a different emotion than meh or sad or whatever?
When you don't fit into your perfect little box.
But they've done that idea so often, especially in kids' movies, that it could come off as real stale, and a lot is going to depend on the execution. But I saw some jokes here that I thought were pretty funny, and some timing that I liked, and some visuals that I liked. It could still be super meh, to borrow from the emoji theme. But I'm a little bit warmed up to it. Next up, on a completely different scale, let's talk about War for the Planet of the Apes.
Oh, it keeps on, like, these trailers keep escalating, showing a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. But we're left with the same story. It's like humanity's last stand in this area against the apes. And it's a lot more of the same to me, really.
Really? This was the first trailer that really made me think, okay, now I have to go back, because I didn't see Dawn. I didn't see the second one of the Planet of the Apes. And I don't know that there's going to be like real strong continuity, but this was the first trailer that convinced me, okay, I got to go back and watch that one so I can see this one when it comes out, because this looks incredible. It's more of the same story point, but a lot of the visuals we saw here are brand new, and it felt a lot more raw.
You also see like the introduction of a new character, like the little girl that's on the ape side. And oddly enough, you see some turncoat apes that are working with the humans.
Well, we've seen a little bit of that in the previous trailers, but there's more of that. They're a lot more overt. There's also the character, and I don't know why this affected me so much, but the character that's telling Caesar about an attack, right? This bald ape-looking thing where he says, "Bad humans kill apes." And that moment, as Caesar's hearing about these, soldiers coming and killing his people, really hit me hard. There was something about the performances, maybe the performance capture and the CG and all that stuff working together. I don't want to open the whole can of worms of, is it performance capture or is it CG? Who gets the credit? But point being, whatever
Can it just
movie
be
magic.
both?
Well, yeah, but people want to call performance capture like the next level of costuming. And then other people are saying, well, no, but you can't give an acting award for performance capture because you can alter the acting in post.
Yeah, but you could totally give an award to Andy Serkis for how he's played Caesar so far.
I'm not saying Andy Serkis is not a worthy recipient of whatever award you want to give him. I just think it's an interesting debate. I said we're not going to get into it, Tony. Dang it. We got into it. But whatever it was, like, I was finally on board. For me, it was not just more of the same. It was like, oh, I'm really on the ape side now. I really want to see. We know they're going to win this war because it's a prequel essentially to all these other Planet of the Apes movies. But I want to see that turn, because I think what we really saw was a turn, and it's not explicit, but at the beginning of the film, Caesar says, listen, we just fight to defend ourselves. We're not here to wipe out humanity. And I think by the end of this film, Caesar is going to be willing to take the first action and say, listen, you guys have beat on us so many times that we can't let you keep doing it. We've got to take you out.
Well, they almost pretty much did with the simian virus. Like,
that was not Caesar's fault, though.
Oh, maybe. It came from him.
No, that was a coincidence. Did you watch the first movie?
Yeah. The whole drug they gave him, like, changed the immune system and gave him, like, that all amped up virus, and he gave it to the veterinarian guy.
It was not, listen, that was not Caesar's fault. Okay?
Whatever. Caesar probably was, like, blowing his nose on that guy's stuff all the time.
Okay, so Tony's Team Woody here, cheering for Woody Harrelson and his buzz cut to win. Why are you so emotional about me killing all your people? I get it. I get where you're coming from, Tony. I was expecting you to like this more, Tony. Clearly.
I just don't like Woody Harrelson in this role. Like, it's made it so that I just don't really buy into this movie as much. I really enjoyed this first two, but there's just something about Woody Harrelson that's not in this. Like, it just doesn't work for me. I'm gonna see it, but I also just don't like him in it.
What I've seen so far in these trailers does make me think that character is real flatly written and just sort of a cartoon villain for Caesar to fight against. Like, he hasn't had a single moment where I was like, man, I get where that guy's coming from. He's just like anti-ape Hitler. Yeah. That's all he is. He's dialed up to 11 a little bit. Maybe we'll get more in the movie, but within the trailers, Woody Harrelson has been the weak point, but not enough for me to be like, well, I'm not going to see it. I'm not interested.
Well, like I said, I'm going to see it. I'm going to finish the trilogy, but I'm not really feeling his character.
Well, the last trailer we have to talk about this week is another movie with war in the title, coming to us from Netflix, a Netflix original, War Machine, starring Brad Pitt.
This one's actually going to be hitting Netflix like a week after this releases?
I think so. It's coming up pretty quick. They don't usually mess around too much. They had a teaser that we did not talk about. And there was actually a really funny teaser for a movie that's like 2018 for Netflix that came out this week. I don't talk too much about their 40-second things because there's not enough meat there. But the teaser for the stoner comedy from the guys from Workaholics that I've forgotten what the name of it is.
I can't remember it either. Like that 40-second preview they did with Will Smith's upcoming movie on Netflix actually was pretty effective to me.
Yeah, it was. Those are fine. I just want for trailer talk, I need a little bit more meat to talk about. But they've released a 2-ish minute trailer here for War Machine, and this is about the sort of, I don't want to say later years because we're still technically kind of fighting this war, but the later years of the U.S. war in Iraq. And General, what was the guy's name? Stanley Crystal?
No, this is Glenn McMahon.
Oh, okay. Anyway, and his sort of struggle to bring peace to that region, but with all of the problems that he has getting funding and getting more troops, and the troops he has wanting to kill people, and he's sort of an absurd figure who's stuck in an absurd machine of bureaucracy, and it's kind of a low-key, funny, not black comedy, I guess. Like, there seems like there's some legitimate jokes here.
Yeah, there's some gallows humor, but that's what happens in like military movies. So I feel like I feel like it fits the tone well enough, but you definitely have the absurdist side showing a lot in this movie. It feels a little bit satire-y, but if it's based pretty well on this character, we'll see how it ends up turning out. I have a feeling it's going to have a lot more emotional weight than these trailers are that are giving it right now.
Well, especially because we're still fighting this war, both in Afghanistan, where we've essentially lost it, by the way. Like 50% of the country now is under control of the Taliban again, because nobody can win a war in Afghanistan, ever, apparently. That's just a bad idea. Let's chalk that one up. Let's just write that one down. Don't go to war in Afghanistan ever, and leave it off. We can't build nations, all right? We've screwed it up in Iraq. We've screwed it up in Afghanistan. If we're not fighting people that we can just go in there and kill, then we shouldn't fight these wars. We're in a weird, and this is a whole, and it fits in not only to that, but the whole geopolitical system that we're in right now with like North Korea. We're really not happy with what you guys are doing, but we're not gonna like do stuff about it because that would require going to war, and we have a different sensibility about war, and North Korea is tied to China, and possibly could be seen by Russia as an encroachment. And by the way, we're not happy with what Russia's doing, but we're not going to go with war to them.
And they're also technically a nuclear power, so that makes it a little more complicated.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to kill people that don't have the power to nuke a whole country.
Yeah, and we're not even worried about them hitting us. They might be able to hit California, but it's more that we think that they would just wipe Seoul off the map.
That they could shoot. I mean, they could shoot up into. It looks like they're shooting at Japan currently. Maybe they can make that happen. I don't know what that would benefit to them, and it's interesting too. I heard somebody making the argument. It doesn't make sense for them to give up their nukes. Every time we've negotiated with people and got them to give up their nukes, we ended up going in there and killing them anyway. Right? Saddam Hussein gave up his nukes. Guess what? He ain't alive anymore. So, from Kim Jong-il's perspective, there's no reason for him to be like, oh yeah, totally. I'm gonna give. He's gonna rattle that saber as hard as he can and look. Well, we also end up like,
we always end up getting into these big contracts where we give him foreign aid and everything else too. So like, him just having those is such a huge bargaining token.
Yep.
There's no reason for him to give it up. I agree with you there.
I don't know what the situation... And by the way, this is not me saying I think that they should solve the situation this way, because I have no idea how they should solve the situation. It's a real complicated situation, and I hope smarter people than me are working on it, because I haven't got the answer. I hope that... Here's what I really hope. I hope that just nothing changes. And that's a really selfish thing to say from the perspective of there's some people who have real bad lives in North Korea, and I feel for that. But this feels like one of those situations where there are so many interconnected threads and things. This is what led up to World War I, where everybody had treaties with everybody else, and all the dominoes started falling. If North Korea has beef with South Korea, we're in South Korea. North Korea nukes South Korea. We're at war with North Korea because we have a tripwire force there. People who really aren't enough to actually do any combat force, but just so they can get killed, so we can say we have a reason to go to war with North Korea. Then, maybe China gets involved. Who knows? Like, there's a whole series of dominoes that nobody wants to fall, and I hope nobody pushes one over. That doesn't really have anything to do with this trailer, Tony. That's sort of the larger geopolitical system. But it does, I think it illustrates the absurdity of what a character like Brad Pitt's character in this movie is going through, because he's a military guy. He wants to win the war. He wants to have, if you're military, you've grown up studying strategy and studying how to beat the enemy and studying how to kill the other guys in the most effective way possible. And then you get in the situation where they're like, well, we don't want to give you more troops, and we don't want you to kill people. We want you to rebuild this nation, but you are still the general, and we want you to win the war. But win it without, like, blowing stuff up and winning battles, okay? Because we don't know actually who the enemy is, and there's this whole squirrely thing where they're part of the population, but we want the population to like us. I think that it's, you mentioned satire earlier, and I think that it is satirical to a point, but it's not that far beyond. It's just pushing
it might
the
just
boundary.
Be like really insightful too, like just showing how big of a mess it is, so it might not have any satire to it.
Yeah, and it feels like the kind of thing that I don't know, maybe there is or was a moment where we can make enough of a difference to change something over there, but I don't know what that is. I don't, the amount of money that has been spent and will continue to be spent to try to stabilize those regions, and ISIS is still a thing, guys, and probably a relatively direct result of us going into Iraq.
Yeah, the whole power vacuum. Although, like, ISIS is less of a threat than I think a lot of people think they are, because they're constantly losing battles against, like, small, like, militia forces and everything. But it doesn't take much if they can get somewhere to do some sort of major terrorist act against us. So,
well, yeah, there's that terrorist angle, right, where we've allowed ourselves to buy into the idea that terrorism is the threat of our time, which I don't want to get super political here. I don't know that threat is as... I worry that we're giving up more of our freedoms than that threat warrants. Okay? I'm not saying that people wouldn't attack, and then that isn't a real thing, but I wonder if all of the sort of steps that we're taking to combat that threat are warranted based on the level of the threat. This is getting super political. I know. I don't want to go too far.
I agree with you on that. It's like, do you trust the current administration with limiting civil liberties for the sake of security right now?
Yeah.
Like, if we were to have some sort of attack that, say, happened at a mall or an airport or anything like that killed a few hundred people or a few thousand people, like, the reactionary response by this government, and I think this would have been the same under Obama as well, would be staggering and very hurtful towards constitutional rights.
I think there is actually a silver lining there. I think Donald Trump is so disliked right now that even if something like that did happen, there would still be a lot of people standing up and saying, "Nuh-uh, no, like we're not giving you more power." I hope that that's the case.
Yeah,
anyway.
I think that also depends on the severity of an attack. Because if somewhere gets a dirty bomb and 50,000 people die, then I think that he might be able to leverage that into more power.
It's possible. I've been very encouraged by the strength of the whole system since Donald Trump has been in office. This is neither pro nor anti-Trump comment. I love that he's not been able to do everything he wants to do. He has
Considering
his powers.
He has like a majority in everything right now, like he should be able to force whatever he wants. I'm kind of surprised he hasn't done more.
There's the press has stepped up to the bat and done what they're supposed to do, and the courts have stepped up to the bat and done what they're supposed to do, and Congress has been squabbling like they're supposed to, and the whole government shouldn't be able to get stuff done super fast. That it was built into our republic from the very beginning has held strong in spite of Donald Trump. And I love that.
Yeah, it's weird how bureaucracy is sometimes our friend.
Yep. And it's not even just bureaucracy. I mean, the whole checks and balances thing was 100% on purpose because you don't want one person to have all the power. Donald Trump don't have all the power. We got a great republic. It'll continue to be great. We will survive this, guys. I know some of y'all really, really hate Trump. I'm not on that bandwagon, okay? I think that I'm not a fan, but sometimes I end up being a defender. But we will survive. There will be other presidents. We will learn from this. we will come out stronger, I believe.
And as far as like educating an electorate on the whole process of getting a president like this on, I think it was Dan Carlin actually talking about how big of a lesson this was towards civil, towards like just civics, like the way people look at the government, what the government's capable of. People are right now kind of learning for the first time, like how far these powers can go and why they shouldn't give powers just because their guy was the guy that was in there before. And it's just kind of a huge lesson for everybody not to kind of trust the overall government with some of this stuff. So I'm enjoying it if for nothing else for that.
For the show.
Yeah. Plus we're talking about like possible treason and things like that. And I think it's more of he's got a big mouth than treason, but it's kind of interesting to watch right now.
I'm not rabid for either side. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Got way too political. Let's go way off the political spectrum though, Tony. There was one more trailer, and this is for a TV show though.
This is for one Al might be considering doing a recap show on. Like, we might be getting rid of the rundown and doing another recap show just because those actually get like lots of traction on the old YouTubes. But this is for Blood Drive.
Blood Drive is a new show from SciFi that takes off in the far off.
Before you go any further, I have to say this is legitimately a thing that is happening because Al sent it to me and I was just like, this isn't like he sent me the premise. He didn't send me the trailer, and I was like, what? This isn't real. This is not an actual thing that's going to be a show. And oh yes, it is. Thanks, SciFi.
I'm not ironic. I also thank you, SciFi. I appreciate that you're out here doing this stuff. I don't love all of SciFi's shows, but I do love that they're taking these swings because they've got all the weirdness right now. They've got that Winona Earp show that I started watching the other day, which had some rockiness in the first episode. I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it, but it's like, yes, a lady shooting demons with a like ancient pistol that's the only thing that can kill them. I'm on board with that. Buffy, but a Western? Give me that. This, though, is not that. This is a show called Blood Drive, which takes place in the far-off future of 1999, which is my favorite thing. I love that moment in the trailer I was like, oh, I'm in board. Like, everything else that happened was just sort of icing on that particular cake.
They kind of like, I feel like that's definitely a Grindhouse theme, like the whole like Kung Fury and all that, like especially in campy Grindhouse where it's halfway comedy.
And this is very much campy. And the premise of the show is that there are cars that run on human blood and have teeth in their engines, and you feed people to them, and then you can drive your car around instead of gasoline.
But have you seen gas prices lately?
No, it doesn't make any sense. Thank you for pointing that out. We appreciate that. Not the point. It is very. I mean, they're 100% like going for the Grindhouse thing, right? They I think it's called Midnight Grindhouse is the brand they're putting this under, the production company or whatever. Each episode is supposed to follow a different Grindhouse theme, which is something that Z Nation has kind of done. They'll sort of pick different genres of story to tell in different episodes, and sometimes they'll have like a political commentary, and sometimes they'll have like a weird sidebar with one character. And I don't always love it when Z Nation does it, but I enjoy them taking the swing, and this is another one of those things where they're taking the swing at doing all these different, women in prison, psycho killer people.
Yeah, like they actually listed out. They're like murder, prison, nymphos, Amazons, like just the full on like old school Grindhouse trailer style. Like I'm trying to think of like there's a music video called Sixes and Sevens from what is it? I'm gonna have to pull it up. Like this is a full on like pulp video. Like they got Peter Stormare and all these other people to be in it. What is the damn name of the band?
I'm going to mention also that that we saw this sort of revival of the Grindhouse aesthetic from Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino with the Grindhouse double feature. You had Planet Terror. You had what was the one Quentin Tarantino did? It all involved a car. It was not running on blood, but it
was
Death Proof.
Yeah, Death Proof with Kurt Russell. And the band I was thinking of is Queens of the Stone Age, 3s and 7s. Look up that video. It's awesome.
I will do that after the episode. I'm not going to watch it on air. But the that sort of look has been making a comeback, and I mean we have our own type of Grindhouse now, right? The Asylum is making cheap movies with CG and stuff for the modern look, but there's that nostalgic quality that people are going for, and I'm not against that.
No,
I know that
I really enjoyed Planet Terror and Death Proof. Like, Death Proof isn't Tarantino's best movie, but it still felt fun. And I don't mind that they're putting together these movies for like $200,000 that have like kind of cheesy action. I don't mind that Hobo with a Shotgun is a thing. It's fun.
I have to say, I tried to watch Hobo with a Shotgun, and that got like too much for me in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, it was a lot for me as well. And if it's a lot for me, that's taking a step beyond for Al.
So, but again, I'm fine with this aesthetic being a thing now, despite the fact that it was just sort of we don't have any money, so this is how we're going to do it kind of thing back in the day. But it's really great to see that making a comeback. And it's part of, also, the other part of angle to that is they're doing a lot of these types of movies on the new MST3K. Have you seen the MST3K, The Return, on Netflix, Tony?
I haven't had a chance to yet. I'm still trying to grind out through Always Sunny. Like, I don't switch between shows a lot of times whenever I start on one. And there's like 11 seasons of Always Sunny.
We did that with, what's the show with the politics? Parks and Rec. By the way, great show about, I think that really applies a lot today about sort of political attitudes and working together in spite of differences of opinions.
Yeah.
Very, very smart show and very funny. We stopped on the last season because we didn't want to be done with it. We wanted to always still have a few to come back to.
I'm also at the last season. I haven't finished it yet, but that was because it wasn't available on Netflix nowadays. But I've really liked that show. It's probably the last sitcom that I've actually liked.
But the new MST3K, I just want to give a shout out to how solidly they've rebooted that. It's a beautiful, not like new enough stuff where you don't feel like they're just doing exactly what they did in the old one, but still so respectful and understanding of what people liked about the old one that it feels really great. There are some, and I get these criticisms, that there are, like, the jokes come way too fast in this rendition of it. I've felt that myself sometimes, but as I'm getting through this season, I'm sort of becoming acclimatized to it, and I get it. I'm not saying that's wrong, but it's so far down my list of concerns that it doesn't really affect my love of that show at all. And I'm really, really digging what they're doing. I hope that they keep going. I hope that it's not just the one season. I hope the return keeps going. Felicia Day is incredible as the new Dr. Forrester, Kinga Forrester, and everybody in that show is doing top-notch work.
I feel like also with the reboot, because people are so, like, I won't say that it's shorter attention spans, but it kind of is. I feel like having a little bit quicker paced jokes is kind of important just to keep people interested, because a lot of those old movies are completely unwatchable without the commentary on them. So you've got to just, like, there were times where MST3K, not very often, it felt like a little bit of a slog every once in a while because the movie was so dull.
Well, that's something I hope that Netflix can avert with sort of this shorter season format. You know, they don't have to, they can take their time and sort of pick through find good, bad stuff. I will say, like, there was a movie they did last week called The Loves of Hercules that on its own was just hilarious. Back in the day, that was the thing to do to make a Hercules movie. If you had, like, a buff dude and, some togas to put on people.
I think that's still the thing. Didn't we get 2 Hercules movies in the last 2 years?
Yeah, but that was sort of a revival of that. Like, they're not coming out with these every 6 months or something. Everybody did Hercules movies back in the day. It was the Grindhouse of the time. And this Loves of Hercules movie is so hilariously bad. There's a moment where, like, he's fighting this, I guess it's supposed to be the Hydra, but it's just this giant animatronic papier-mâché dragon with 3 heads. And the heads just go up and down and, like, breathe fire. And he's just sitting there under the heads, like, hacking at it with the sword. Dink, 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 dink. For, like, a minute. And then they cut away, and then they cut to, the head's off now. It's great. It's so bad. But in, like, a fun way, not a I'm so bored with this kind of way.
I
the
get
accent the guy does for Hercules is It's good stuff. And a lot of the other episodes too have different, I would say, positive qualities. The one they did, The Lost World, I actually thought if this wasn't on MST3K, I would be fine just watching this movie. It's sort of an old school claymation dinosaur movie with a German submarine plot thrown in, and
well, I always felt that the better the movie, the more material they had to work with. So they don't always have to be so terrible.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I like the. Were we looking for something, Tony?
No, I was looking up 1997's Hercules because it's one of my favorite Disney movies.
Okay.
I got distracted. I'm sorry.
Well, that's fine, Tony, because I think it's about time to wrap things up here on the Human Echoes podcast. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. If you like this show, go give us a rating on iTunes. That's a thing that you can do, apparently, if you have an iPhone or some kind of iDevice.
Or if you just have iTunes installed on your computer.
Yeah, that's really... I did that once just so that I could rate a podcast that I liked, and then I was like, this is so much work.
Yeah, you gotta have, a credit card and all this other stuff. Also, you could...
Also, it's not called iTunes anymore. It's called Apple Podcasts. So that's a thing, too.
Yeah, you can still get access to them within iTunes, but it's a little bit weird. But along with that, if you want to support us, the best way of doing that is by becoming a member. Look at becoming a member for $2, $5, $10, or $20 a month. Get a lot of different bonuses, like pins, like the bonus podcast. The bonus podcast is awesome. I can't overstate that enough. We're going to release another one on here soon enough so you guys can see how good it is. And yeah, becoming a member is the number one way to support us. So
next week we will be covering the John Carpenter. His first name's John, right?
Yeah, I believe.
For a second there, I was like, no, that's not right.
Now you've got me doubting it, but I'm pretty sure it's John Carpenter.
The John Carpenter classic film, Escape from New York. It's on Netflix. Many of you have probably seen it, but if you haven't, check it out. We'll be talking about it next week. Kurt Russell, classic action. He's hot in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 right now. And we'll see you next week with another episode of the Human Echoes podcast.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.